Welcome to the Two Doors podcast, where we open the doors to Australia's top minds in tech, talent, and transformation. Hosted by Alexander Gill, founder of Two Doors Recruitment, we cut through the noise with real conversations from leaders building the future of work. Subscribe to the show to hear and see more of these types of conversations. Let's get into it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Two Doors podcast, and I am here with Jennifer Selby-Long, who is a trusted executive coach who spent over 30 years helping technology leaders go beyond the title and make a real impact. She's guided leaders at Airbnb, LinkedIn, Cisco, and Nestle through complex transformations, showing them how to influence their organization and shape the future of work. Jennifer, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Alexander. It's my pleasure to be here.
Well, I'm very excited for today because you've got so much knowledge and experience in this space that I'm very excited. And what's been going on lately?
Oh my gosh. Well, we've had this business for 28 years and things just get more and more exciting as we go along. And so of late, we are noticing some common threads across clients in different industries, for sure, whether they're technical because they're in a technology industry or they're technical because they're handling cyber or another technology function in a non-technical type of industry. AI is really driving a tremendous amount of uncertainty and change and a lot of questions around what should we be driving in our culture and our processes and our behaviors today with AI in its infancy and yet so huge. It's like baby Huey. It's this gigantic screaming toddler. And it's costing everyone a fortune and nobody quite knows what to do with it. And so those really, I think that's been more frequent of a conversation than almost anything that I've had lately as far as just the chit chats and the catch ups go. And then, the other thing that's going on, it's really timeless. There are certain things that are interesting, challenging, and stressful for leaders, whether it's 30 years ago today or my best guess is 30 years in the future. Because no matter what the technology is, it always comes back to people. At the end of the day, you get as good as you're going to get technically. And if you're a leader, I got news for you. You're not going to get any better technically. You don't have the bandwidth. You got to lead people now. And so it really, really does always come back to people. And they're very complex. They're very, very complex. And there are not that many generalizations we can make about leading them. And especially when we layer in multiple changes, transformation, multiple transformations that our clients are needing to either lead themselves or be a substantial part of as leaders to co-lead.
Yeah, it's very right. I love people because everyone comes from different backgrounds, right? Myself, I'm half Spanish and I'm also half Welsh. Grew up in London but live in Australia. So talk about complexity right there. And being in business for 28 years, you would have seen so many trends, and you see this trend now. So I love your point about AI being a toddler and this screaming toddler. We had an event last week in Melbourne, and it was talking about what is going on, and it seems to be a massive, to your point about that fear or FOMO and what goes on. And I like how you take businesses on that transformation as well. So teach us a bit about how you, because I hear that you've won a fantastic client lately, a massive name, and so what does your engagements normally look like? Because you've helped some brilliant businesses prior.
I have been so fortunate to work with such brilliant leaders over the years and, to have learned from them as they're learning from me for sure. So eternally grateful for that opportunity. I think it's very difficult to answer the question of what a typical engagement looks like because interestingly, before we even begin an engagement and there's a contract, I've had so many conversations with the leader around what is your situation? What is going on here? What are the challenges that you are facing? What would happen if you didn't do anything about them? Would they just work themselves out? Should we be intervening here? You don't have a lot of time. Or what is it that's really going on? And what would it mean to you if you had success? And what the heck does that look like? So often our clients are so strong in process. They have come up being just killer on process, putting great processes in place that keep companies safe, that keep them operating better. Um, that they're really wrapped up in the process of what they need to do to transform, and we need to step back a little and say, hey, is that destination really clear to people? Is it super clear to you? What is it going to look like when you get there? Or how do you know that you're making progress toward it along the way? Because often these transformations have what, for lack of a better term, I'll call a soft side. And so it's not really very unusual for the contract to look a little different from one engagement to the next, depending on what's in their head, what's in their hearts, what's in their situation. It's not at all unusual to begin by working with the senior leader and often that person's direct leadership team. I often find that's the biggest lever when you look at things that you can pull. Do you need to make a change to some processes? Well, these are the people that need to influence the business leaders to make those. I have never known a technology leader who could do anything by themselves. All technology is a team sport, all of it.
Mm.
And so it's pretty rare for us to just be working with a leader. There's a whole school of executive coaches. It's very clandestine. They're very secretive. They take their cues from the profession of therapy or mental health counseling. They're like, I'm just kind of here as the counselor, and it's all very secretive and quiet, and it's all one on ones. But we're not in that camp at all. We're business people. And so we want to know your goals. We want you to be working only on the development that is going to help you get to your goals as a collective, as a company,
Yeah.
not those that are just nice to have, or that you really wish you personally were developing. That's if it's not relevant to the company's success, that's not where we need to be focusing our time. And so it's pretty typical for us to be working with a leader and that person's directs. Not at all unusual across time for us to also do some work with their next level down. That is so where, the sleeves are really rolled up and the rubber is really hitting the road. It's those directors, senior managers that are working to make it happen. And so, we often find there are elements of our work that can be helpful for them. They may not need help in setting the organizational change strategy, but in leading people through it, they're leading the front lines. And
Mm.
so they're the ones who are going to get the toughest questions,
Yeah.
right?
A-
They're the
And
ones who have the toughest change job.
and you've obviously seen many different companies and organizations, and how can you organize a company well?
You know, um, there's in terms of how you actually organize the org structure, there are so many answers to that question. And especially when we look at those fundamentally technical functions. Oh, should we be set up with direct line to CFO, dotted line to legal? Oh no, we're really a risk management function. We better be direct line to legal, dotted line to the CTO, or maybe the CIO. So I don't know. Should we be part of digital transformation because we have to be wrapped up in every one of those initiatives? So these are sort of those never ending questions that have no one pure, clear, true answer, even when we look out at, the research from the companies that, spend millions on their research. They'll come up with answers like, well, it looks like it's organized this way in 50% of companies and this way in the other 50%.
Yeah.
So a great deal of what you decide is going to have a subjective element to it, but for us we're really looking often at what are you building for the future, like how are you building that future ready leadership team, not just for today, but think of a great sports team um that wins 5 world championships in a row. Like, that didn't get built in year 1.
Yeah.
That got built with some real foresight and some thinking ahead, and then some willingness to shift and adjust along
Mm.
the way as situations changed. And so that's a lot of what we're discussing when we're discussing how you organize an organization for success. But we're also super interested in what are you building in terms of your leadership, in terms of your culture? Are you super clear on your expectations, or are we noticing that you have these aspirations that you're setting as expectations, but what you're rewarding is actually something different? We all do this. We don't realize we're doing it. And so we're asking a lot of questions like that. Like, how do you know what's the evidence that you actually are creating that culture that you need to create? I mean, interestingly, um, we see companies that succeed with cultures that I would think of as totally terrible. Um, they happen to have a great strategy. They happen to be super lucky. Um, Uber had a terrible culture, but there was a gigantic gap in the market, right?
Yeah.
Most cities didn't issue enough medallions to cabbies, and so it was hard to get a ride anywhere. Hmm. They just exploited Airbnb as well. Now, Airbnb actually had a very nice culture. Uber did not. They started in a similar time frame. Both succeeded because there was a gigantic hole waiting to be filled. And so you could get through it almost any way you wanted. That said, we like to work with companies who are oriented toward more or less certain types of cultures. We're not looking to help you develop a better a-hole culture. We're really not. You can probably
Well,
do that without us.
everything rises and falls on leadership, though, doesn't it? It all
That's it.
trickles down from that. And I loved our conversation last time where we were talking about that elite athlete and how it's mindset and
Yes.
everything. So I love the point you're saying about the team culture, because it's very right. Like, from all of the best teams, like, I study all of this stuff because I find it so fascinating. But how do you become a great leader, or another type of the other side to that, or what you've seen, what characteristics are in a great leader?
Mm. So I do think that there are certain things that you need um, to become a great leader, or even just to become a better leader. There are certain things that successful people do to get even better, and they're so unglamorous.
Right.
First and foremost, they have courage to create an environment in which people will tell them the truth, in which even a very junior person will say, you know, that last all hands you did, I don't think you nailed it, boss's boss. Here's why. And then, that person doesn't have to worry that they're going to get fired. That person might be very right or very wrong, but the great leaders really create those environments in which they've conveyed that they have the courage to hear feedback, to hear suggestions for how to be better. Right? They have they have the courage that I guess I would say that's maybe more humility. Then they have the courage to actually act on some of those things, to try new behaviors. My probably greatest mentor in coaching is probably Marshall Goldsmith, who was one of the original coaches. Marshall is no longer coaches; he's quite a bit older, um, but he has long said that you have to have the courage to try these new behaviors, because what got you here won't get you there. So
Yeah.
if you're content with what you're doing now, if you're content with your leadership now, if everybody is content and it's working and nothing's changing, okay, maybe there is no there you want to get to.
Yeah.
But for most of us, that's almost never the case. It might be that way for a short while, but not for very long. So you really have to have that humility. You got to have that courage. And it's interesting, you need to have a certain willingness to do the boring, tedious, frustrating, hard work day in and day out. Which for our clients means in every coaching appointment, we have something called a daily behavioral checklist. And we identify those behaviors that you're going to do your best to do every day during the week. I don't ask it on the weekends, though many people do extend it into the weekends. And you're going to do your best. And at the end of every single day, you're going to step back and reflect and just ask, did I do my best to do this thing? Not, was I successful? Was I good at it? Was I terrible at it? Early on in your coaching process, if you're trying new behaviors, I would expect you to be terrible at them. I would expect people to give you feedback that seemed about right, but it was so awkward. I am expecting that. You're trying something new. If you
Yeah.
nail it right away, we're the ones who blew it. We're the ones who didn't set the bar high enough, right? So you're really reflecting every day on, did I give it my best effort? And it's very interesting what comes out of those reflections, because if you go a week and you didn't give it your best effort, now you have to face yourself and say,
Mm.
why? Why did I not do this? I know that this behavior will lead to the result I want. Yet I avoided it. I resisted it. I didn't do it. I make
Yeah.
and we have conversations like, what are those excuses that you made? And that's where we start to head down that path of rewiring your brain, because in order to become better and better as a leader, you really will be rewiring your brain. You'll be saying, I want this neural network a little weaker, and I want this neural network a little stronger. And we'll be doing exercises to where you really are looking to master the mental game, right? To have that mental command.
That's fantastic, Jenna. There was a lot of wisdom in that. That's why I was taking down some notes, and I love
So
some of
yeah,
your bits. And what I sensed is that there's that overcoming of discomfort. I think
yeah,
society is really selling us comfort right now, and even
yes.
to your point about enjoying the boredom or the mundane, because everything is so microwave mentality, Instagram, everything is so here and now. But it's really in that boredom and that mundane and that repetitive action where you rebuild these new neural pathways and become that better leader. And
Mhm.
there's a lot of society out there saying, get rich quick or this, and it's the I almost see it like whatever the society says, do the complete opposite, and that's what goodness.
Wise. That's wise. That's wise. Yes. There's an awful lot of emphasis on comfort. Um, and it's not, comfort is wonderful. And there are times when we need it. Um, but I would say a little more accurately, when we look at something like change and the personal reaction to change, one of the things you do need to do as a leader is not so much create comfort in the people who you're asking to go through change, because that's impossible. You're not asking them for just to have that comfort as they go through it, but it's more that you're you're helping to give them confidence that you will help them through it, that there will be help to get through it. This is not a dump and run kind of leadership model, right? It's we are all moving through this transformation together. I am going to do my best to give you the resources that you need. I am not going anywhere. This is extremely important. One of our qualifying questions when we meet prospective clients is, hey, are you in for at least a year?
Yeah.
Or if you're not, if you're talking to us because you are moving up, do you have your successor planned? Is that one of the changes underway? Um, because if you're on your way out, if you have one foot out the door, we can't really do this kind of work.
Mm.
You personally need to provide as much human stability as you can,
Yeah.
when you are asking people to go through so much change in how they work and who they work with and what they work with, and even, how their job is defined and how success is. I think it's very easy as leaders to forget that when you're at the level of a transformation in a business, it's not just about transforming the business operations, which is our classic textbook definition.
Yeah.
You are in many ways asking people to transform how they see themselves. That's that's heavy.
That's huge.
That's heavy stuff. And so I think about one of my favorite examples isn't even in technology. A client I've worked with for a while now is a finance genius. She heads FP&A for a big company and absolutely respected for her business acumen. Only client I've ever had where when the ELT, I needed them to participate in her 360. Boom. I've never seen so many senior most executives drop everything. Say, what does she want? What does she want? I'll do it. I'll do it. So
Mm.
respected everywhere. And so, why was this person working with someone who works with people who are technology leaders? She wanted to lead technology enabled change. And so, she is a rock for that team. She's absolutely stable for that team. Um, she recognized that at her most junior level in FP&A, what do you have? Analysts. And for the analysts, the technology, this was even before AI exploded on the scene. They were going to go from spending 85% of their time in spreadsheets and complaining about it, by the way. All I do are these fancy spreadsheets. I don't have any time to analyze and have conversations to guide the business. And I have a degree in finance. And when am I going to get to use it? Wow, guess what happens when you get what you wish for? The technology makes all of that go away. That's 30 minutes of your day. And in fact, the business leaders can do a lot of that themselves. Press
Mm.
one button. So now your whole identity changes because now you think you're going to give them guidance, but they don't want to listen to you. Why? You've never given a moment's attention to how you influence people, how you
Yeah.
connect with them. So we were looking, a couple of years out before their roles were even going to completely be changed by technology and starting to equip them with the skills. How do you have conversations with business leaders that influence them? How do you tell a story that hooks them and influences them to make the decisions you think they need to make? Right?
Yeah.
How do you really become a trusted partner? And we even skilled them up. We don't do a lot of workshops anymore, but we actually crafted and did workshops around how you influence senior business leaders. How do you get in there with stakeholders? How do you build that trust? How do you build that story? How do you handle the massive conflict and resistance that goes with change? It's fundamental. It's absolutely fundamental.
And influence is huge. We had Brendan Donahue on the podcast, and
Oh, yeah.
he's a chief digital officer at UniSuper, which is basically the pension system over here in Australia. But your employer has to pay it, and then it's invested for you. It's actually a great system. And he talks about the 4 stages, and the first is that you have to be that subject matter expert. And so
Mhm.
I love talking about influence. But I wanted to pick your brain, Jennifer, about what are the needle movers.
In terms of change generally, or in terms of getting those stakeholders on board?
Both, both.
Both. They're similar in many ways. A fundamental grounding for change and a proven needle mover, interestingly, is around leader self awareness that I talked about earlier. So, those leaders who are willing to constantly examine their own fundamental relationship with change, right? That critical self reflection. There is no growth without critical self reflection for a leader. And so, that willingness to do that is an absolute proven needle mover. I say this not just from our own work as a small firm that's really kind of in the trenches, but a recent study conducted by Oxford, published in 2023, which is quite recent for these huge global studies. It did indicate an update to our understanding. It was funded by EY, but was not an EY biased study. I read how they did it. I looked deep into it. It was really good stuff, and that was certainly the first and most fundamental needle mover. If you're not willing to do the critical self examination, if you're all about they got to change, come on, Jennifer, get on in here. They got to change. I don't think you're going to influence a lot of change because you're not demonstrating a whole lot of that change and development and growth yourself. So that is a fundamental needle mover for leaders in all technology functions. You hear it probably on nearly every podcast, which is understand the business. But to me, it's how you come to understand the business. I actually created a self assessment for that. I'd be happy to share it with anyone who wants a PDF. Just let me know. And it's how well do you know your function? How well do you know the larger function that you're part of if you're a subset of a larger function? And how well do you know the business? And it is pretty funny. The further out we go, the lower people's self assessment scores get. It's like, oh, my own piece of it, scale of 1 to 10, I'm nines and tens. And as you start moving further out, like, what are the greatest opportunities for the business? What do the various business leaders believe are the greatest opportunities and threats for their area that they're responsible for? What about for the company as a whole? Um, not many leaders in technology spend enough time with business leaders just saying, hey, look, I would like to get to know your business. I would like to ask you some questions about it. And I would love for you to answer those questions, regardless of whether it has anything to do with cyber IT
Mm,
edge, right? I just would like to hear about you and your business and getting to know that person a little bit personally. They're three-dimensional people. They're not just leaders of businesses. What would it mean to them personally if they hit these goals or they had this success? Um, for some reason in technology, we're afraid to ask those questions. And yet, those who do build these stronger relationships. There's another thing that I find is often skipped, but is so vital to influence is by the time we're at our, VP, even senior director level, we're so excited about the strategy in the future and all the big, amazing things we can do and how what we do can be a competitive advantage for the business. We kind of lose sight of the fact that there's not much difference in many business leaders' eyes in your credibility as to whether you've come up with a fabulous digital strategy or cyber strategy or whether your help desk is getting better. And it's all of a piece, it's all of a part. And so being able to really keep your eye on those fundamentals, always be improving those, always make sure that your customers are happier and happier with the things that, that to you, maybe they make you so bored, you just want to go, oh, but it's really important and it builds your credibility. We also tend to get out a little bit ahead of ourselves in terms of wanting to talk about this big future and the strategy to get there and the technology that's going to get us there. And what really builds that trust with stakeholders is talking more about what do they need now? What are those early wins that you can help them get? And, what are you helping them get? And then, oh, by the way, now let's talk about the bigger picture. Many technology leaders, in particular, are of a fundamentally different temperament, which is a subset of personality, um, than are, in particular, the heads of sales. And I see this mentioned constantly. It's like, we need sales on board. We can't get those stakeholders excited. And I say, tell me how you're approaching them. And they're doing it literally backwards because they're doing it in the way that works for them, which is here's the big picture into the future. Now we're going to drill down into the strategic elements, and then we're going to go down into the roadmap. It's the classic executive way to present things. Most sales leaders think about what sales is responsible for. They're
yeah.
not designing the car. They're not engineering the car. They're not building the car. Their 100% job is to keep gas in the car so it runs. You can't be someone who's constantly thinking about the design in the future and the new models and how they're going to be better and be concentrating on making sure that the gas gauge doesn't go too low and that the pump is getting the right gas in there. And so, you got to flip the script
Yeah.
and you'll get those sales stakeholders on board so much faster. Here's what we're doing for you today. Here were literally the successes last week.
Mm,
And this week, here's what's scheduled to be successful by Friday. Would you like to talk about next quarter? How about a year from now, right? Can we talk about that? Because they are under constant pressure for the here and the now. And then, we in technology show up and we're like, oh, here's our beautiful vision of the future and all the technology that enables it. And they're like, what? I cannot even begin to meet you there. And so, again, for anyone, I would say in a connecting function, whether it's a technical function, whether it's finance, whether it's HR, um, we need to flip and stop trying to educate them so much or require them to know so much about what we do and understand. And
mm,
instead, really flip that to where we are pushing ourselves way outside of our comfort zone and asking lots of questions about their business and about them personally and what things would mean to them. Talk about out of our comfort zone. Yee.
Well, a lot of a lot of the points you're saying there, Jennifer, I sense in emotional intelligence. And
Yeah.
like a book that really helped me put it all together was Travis Bradbury's Emotional Intelligence 2.0, where he talks
Yes.
about the four different quadrants, which is, self-awareness, self-management, others awareness, others management. And
Yeah.
there's some great needle movers there. And bringing
Mm.
this into land, Jennifer. So two parts. So firstly, how can we follow you and get this PDF? And secondly, any imparting wisdoms, anything you'd love to share with people out
Oh
there?
my gosh. So as far as how to reach me, just reach out on LinkedIn. And you're also more than welcome to go to our website, fill out the contact us form, and we will get that. Let us know you want the PDF, and we will get that to you. Um, we don't really have anything that we've published specific to EQ right now. This one's much more specific to getting to know the business and having EQ when you do that. But one of our coaches is really truly one of the leading experts on the application of EQ in leadership. So you've given me the idea maybe we need to publish a little something that's a little more broadly on EQ and leadership and change. Imparting wisdom, uh, just stay open, get that feedback. It is gold. And please, please, please help yourself and help others by never, ever doing this when someone gives you feedback. Hey, so and so, here's the feedback for you. I think you should do blah, 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 blah. Oh, well, I have reasons for doing it the way I did it. Let me explain it to you.
The justification.
The only appropriate answer to feedback, whether you wanted it or not, is thank you for the feedback. Thank you for sharing it. If you want to make a commitment, say, I'm going to reflect on that. Right. Um, you will continue to get golden nuggets of feedback, including feedback you can't act on. That's okay. You can't act on everything. But just never shut it down. Always appreciate it as a gift. Gifts don't always come beautifully wrapped with a bow and just the color we like. Sometimes they come in ugly packaging and we open it and it's something we never wanted and we really want to give it back, but that would be rude. But a lot of times the ugly gift and the ugly packaging turns out to be the thing that really triggers that growth and that change that catapults you
Hmm.
right to where you need to be.
That's brilliant. Well, that is a fantastic place to leave it. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Jennifer. That's been brilliant.
It's my pleasure. I hope it was helpful.
If you like this episode, please like and subscribe. It helps the growth of the channel so we can keep interviewing some of the best minds that there are here. Thank you very much.